Hi guys, I'm Josh.
And I'm Dave.
And we want to welcome you back to the second part of our guide for Virgin landlords. Today we'll look at the second set of tips out of the 12 we've got for landlords.
Okay, so on to number 7. What are my legal obligations? Now, you will need to have a tenancy agreement drawn up. You'll also need to have an EPC, which is an Energy Performance Certificate. And you'll also need to protect the deposit from your tenant as well. You'll also need to have a gas safety certificate, if applicable. If there's no gas in the property, then obviously you won't need one. And finally, if you want us to do all this for you, we certainly can. It's part of our management package, and we'd be more than happy to sort all those things out for you.
Okay, so point number 8, what happens to the deposit? Now it's really important that the deposit is protected, that's the most important thing. For us at JDG, we take £100 more than the rent, and that is the normal deposit we get the tenant to pay. Once we receive that, we send it off to a company called My Deposits, who protect it for us, and we send the tenant a certificate. We do this for both our managed and our let-only landlords, but sometimes let-only landlords do prefer to do it themselves, but it's really important it's done. If it's not done within 30 days, there can be some pretty hefty fines, and also if you wanted to get your tenant out with a Section 21 notice, this won't be able to happen because you haven't protected the deposit, so really important thing for you to do.
Okay, and number 9, who pays for what? Now, before letting the property out, you will need to make sure the property is in good order, professional clean if needs be. You also need to make sure all the legal paperwork is sorted. One more thing, you will need to make sure that the council tax is up to date as well in preparation for your new tenants. Now, during the tenancy, for yourselves as landlords, you will have to pay any agent fees that are applicable. You'll also need to organise some building insurance. You also need to pay for any maintenance that comes up during the tenancy, and also any service charges if applicable. Now, for the tenant, they will be obviously responsible for paying their rent. Also, they'll need to be paying a deposit when they first sign the tenancy agreement. And also, they will need to keep up with all their bills, their council tax, including what a lot of tenants tend to forget sometimes is the TV licence as well. Now, at the end of the tenancy, again, you as landlords, you will need to pay back the deposit, provided that everything is okay with the property and you're happy to do so. On the other hand, if the tenants need to do any cleaning before, they will have to pay for this as well.
Okay, so point number 10, do I have access to my property once it's let? Now, this is something that people often forget. Just because you're the landlord and you might have a key to the property, you can't just turn up whenever you like. It's now your tenant's home. The usual rule of thumb is that you've got to give your tenants 24 hours of written notice in order to access the property. As long as you've done that, they can't ask you not to come in, and pretty much you're allowed to go in. Now, sometimes we can give them a quick call and say, is it okay if so-and-so comes in, but they do have the right to refuse if we haven't given them 24 hours written notice. This applies to landlords, but it also applies to us as well. We can't just send maintenance people around unless it's an absolute emergency without notice, and we also can't carry out inspections unless we've given them at least 24 hours notice. But we aim to give tenants as much notice as possible before we enter their home. Really important thing to consider.
Okay, thank you, Josh. And on to point number 11. What if I want my property back early? Now, unless the terms are broken of the agreement that was originally signed, unfortunately you won't be able to get your property back early unless the tenants agree to do this also. On the other hand, this works both ways. So if the tenant wanted to end their contract early, this cannot be done unless you agree to this as well. Otherwise, it's a standard fixed period notice that will be applicable.
Okay, so point number 12, what happens at the end of a tenancy? So everything's gone well, your tenant's given us notice and it's time for them to move out. Once we get the keys back, we book in what's called a checkout inspection, which is by our mobile inventory inspection company. They go around with the original inventory with any notes on that your tenant has made and make sure that everything's been returned in clean and good condition with a bit of allowance for general wear and tear. Now, it's really important to consider this. If someone's been living in your property, it's not going to come back exactly how you let it, but as long as it's sort of normal wear and tear and not huge gouges out of the walls and things like that, a few marks and scuffs here and there is something we'd expect. If everyone agrees everything's okay and they've handed it back in good condition, we'll return the deposit to the tenant. If there is any problems, we'll give them the opportunity to go back and rectify these, or give them the option for us to send around professionals and deduct that from their deposit. It's a very stringent process we have to go through to make sure we hit all the legal guidelines when it comes to returning deposits. If, however, we can't come to a suitable agreement between the landlord, the tenant and ourselves, we can withhold the money, carry out the work, and then they can then dispute the withheld money with the My Deposits tribunal. Now that's completely independent and is completely free as part of what My Deposits offers. Basically, it gives us the opportunity to provide evidence of maybe the inventory, the checkout report, any maintenance we've had done, and gives the tenant their chance to say why they don't think that money should have been retained. My Deposits then make a completely independent decision as to who should get what money, and they will split the money as they see fit. Now, if it does go to this, what they say is final. It can't then be taken up in court at a later date. So we try our very best to try and negotiate it ourselves before it gets escalated to this process. But the vast majority of the time, we can all come to an agreement and the deposits can be returned to the relevant places. So hopefully these 12 tips have given you some good insight on what you need to know to get started becoming a landlord, or maybe just refresh a few points you didn't know if you're already a landlord with us. If you do have any further questions, give either myself or Dave a call on 01524 843322 or drop us an email at lettings@jdg.co.uk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.